koutou, Creative Mornings whānau. Have we got everyone in the room that wants to be in the room? Awesome. Welcome to Creative Mornings. My name is Christine. I'm one of your co-hosts, and we'll throw it to Claire a little bit later, who's also a co-host. Who is new here today? Who's never been to a Creative Mornings? Oh, some new faces. Welcome, welcome. I love to see it. Recently, I met with a wonderful person called Christina Hug, who is all the way from the Americas, and she used to work for used to be involved with I think it was the Vancouver chapter in obviously Vancouver in Canada, and now works for Creative Mornings HQ in New York. And by the way, everyone overseas loves New Zealand. So they love Creative Mornings New Zealand. They love to see what's happening here. I think it's just because we're so far away. So that was kind of a beautiful little reflection moment. Hi, Andy. So before we start off, I'm going to hand over to Lucy, one of our volunteers, who is going to share a karakia with us. You can hold the little mic if you like.
Oh, thanks. Oh, it's so wee. Atamari e te whānau. Kei te karakia tātou. Tukua te wairua kia rere ki ngā taumata. Hei arahi i a tātou mahi me tā tātou whai i ngā tikanga a rātou mā. Kia mau, kia ita, kia korea i ngaro, kia pupuri, kia whakamaua, kia tina, tina. Humie, huie, tāekie.
Kia ora, Lucy. So our theme for this month, and we have a global theme that we share with the rest of the world every month, is nomad. And so I'm going to invite my co-host Claire up here to just share the synopsis for nomad.
Kia ora koutou. I usually read this from my phone, but I'm reading a fantastic book at the moment called Why Creativity Rules the World. Very fitting. And oh, sorry, yes. And I read in my book yesterday that the act of handwriting, actually instills information in your brain a lot better. There's a section of the brain that it sticks in, so that's why I've gone to the trouble of writing it down this morning. Some people feel compelled to travel from place to place, to live outside the confines and constraints of a permanent address. Others have no choice but to leave home in search of a better life. A nomad embraces discomfort, welcomes the unknown, and sees every detour as a new adventure. Have you heard the call of the open road? Ever dream of being a digital nomad working from exotic locales? Crossing borders and time zones to discover fresh inspiration and share-worthy views. But following your nomadic spirit doesn't require collecting stamps in your passport. The act of creating is its own journey. So, meander through your ideas. Roam between different executions. The most important thing is to take the first step. It doesn't matter where it leads, because the joy is suddenly finding yourself somewhere unexpected. Whether you're racking up frequent flyer miles or navigating a change in your creative career, remember that motion fuels imagination. I love that. Motion fuels imagination. Wander, wonder, repeat. Thank you.
So our global sponsor is Adobe, and I assume because of the nature of what a lot of you do, this is a commonly used software. Who has used Adobe in the last week? Yep. Not as many as sometimes. Sometimes we have like everyone in the room's like, yeah, last night, mate. So Adobe Career Resources are something that you folks should check out. Adobe Portfolio, if you have an Adobe subscription, all apps subscription, you get 5 free Adobe Portfolio websites to use. LinkedIn Premium, I believe you get 3 months free LinkedIn Premium with your Adobe subscription. So if you're on the lookout for work or in the job market, check that out. And we have our Creative Career Apprenticeship that Adobe is working on at the moment in partnership with Creative Mornings. So check that out on the website. Big shout out to our sponsors. So we have the wonderful 6 Barrel Soda who provides our speaker gift. Libertine Blends for our tea. Coffee Supreme for your caffeination this morning, and All Good Oat Milk. We have Pornake Bakery for your, as I called it this morning, regular bread. But it's actually beautiful baked bread in Wellington. And Dough Bakery for our gluten-free loaf. We have Bad Baker for your breakfast cookies, and 40 Thieves for our peanut butter. You would have noticed this morning that there was an unlabelled jar of peanut butter. That is because I buy a 10 kg pail personally for myself at home. Big shout out to our event space here today, 257. They have continuously supported us over the last few years. We've got our guest photographer today, Harrison. Hello, Harrison. Thank you, Harrison. We have Andy from Hype Entertainment. Thank you, Andy. And we have Colourcraft for your labels today. We must do some more printing with them. We need to get some posters and stuff. Yeah. Shout out to our amazing volunteers that make your coffee and make your toast, just like breakfast at home, except someone does it for you. And a nice little reminder, if you feel you're not getting enough creative mornings in your life, you can jump on and access field trips, which aren't necessarily in the morning, which might be good for some of you. And this is an example of a field trip in which people were drawing on fruit. And then, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our speaker for today, Rachel Young, who is a designer, illustrator, all-round creative, and who has been living all around the place over the last couple of years and is going to share her story with us. So we'll just do a little swaps over of slides. Cool. Jump on up, Rach. Woo!
So while this one gets up, morena, ki koutou katoa, ko Rachel toko ingoa, and thank you all for coming today. So whilst these slides get up, I'm going to give you a short, have we got the, here we go, just a little definition of what the term nomad is. So a member of a group of people who move from one place to another rather than living in one place all of the time. And you guys will see through these presentation slides that that is strictly true of where I'm at in my life at the moment. So I'm going to start off by just giving a little roundabout view of me. So I grew up on the sunny Isle of Wight, and I was surrounded by ocean all the time, and that was something that was really, really important to me. I also grew up being pretty artistic and was absolutely convinced that I was going to be an artist, and then I kept hearing the term starving artist, and I thought, I can't do this and I don't have enough in me. So what I ended up doing is I did a foundation diploma in art and design, and at that point I really didn't know what I was going to do and was kind of deciding if I wanted to go for fine art as a pathway or illustration, and I ended up choosing illustration because I felt like there was a little bit more hands-on at that point. And then I studied a BA in visual communication. And the reason why I did that was because I was a little bit nervous about going for illustration as a degree. I was again a little bit nervous about the starving artist. And I didn't have enough guts in me at that point. I was very, very, very young. And so visual communication was sold to me as being a kind of amalgamation between graphic design and illustration. So I thought, perfect. So studied there for 3 years, and then later moved to the city of Bristol, where this little picture of me with a billboard I was very happy with. It was the first billboard they ever did, and it was a great little project. So I ended up working for a recruitment advertising agency, and I worked there for a couple of years. It was really, really great experience. I was directing photo shoots, I was doing this, that, and the other. But I soon realized that my passions of kind of following different, I guess, social and environmental issues weren't really being fulfilled there. So when I was at university, the main projects that I were doing were social environmental, as I was saying. So I did like a kind of beach clean project, and I got very involved in the community there. And so I realized that I wanted to, one, move abroad, and two, I wanted to pursue a little bit more of my passion. So I just took a big leap, and I ended up going. So in that time, I met with one of the founders of Refill. It's an initiative that runs all over the world, and actually ended up being her graphic designer. So that was a really good way for me to just kind of get into freelance life. It was like a very serendipitous thing that happened. And in that time, some of you will be familiar with Inktober. So it's like a 30-day challenge that someone sets, and then every day of that 30 days, you kind of create something new. And so I created my own called Oceantober, where I chose my own prompts for words. They were all related to the ocean, and what I actually did was pick out articles that would be useful potentially to people, and would educate them on various issues about the ocean. And so that's where I started freelancing, and let's go to the next. So not long after, I ended up wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, very much ready to take on the world. It was my first trip solo, and my destination was here. So it was very much, I went hard, to be honest. And in that time, I was using one of my hobbies of diving as an anchor. So for those of you who are like keen on traveling or want to travel, just a little tip, use your hobbies as something to kind of keep you grounded to different places. I found that it let me kind of experience a lot more of the countries that I went to just by having this hobby that I did. And so essentially, this is me kind of living the dream and being a little bit awkward over there. And just sitting in hammocks and really just having a good time. So obviously it was a big move for me, and especially living from a small island, then to a big city, well, medium-sized city, and then to the other side of the world, right? So when I came here, that's me at a winery, again, beautiful time of my life. I came here, again, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and luckily for me, about a month later, my sister was actually due to come out to go and see me. So we did a road trip from Christchurch all the way up to Auckland, and I was kind of scouting out different places that I might want to live. And I'll go to this one first. So then with my working holiday visa, because that's what I came on, I was permitted to work, and so I found a really lovely job at the Department of Conservation. So again, with that kind of background of me being interested in environmentalism and social issues and things, it really, really was the perfect job. And so my visa allowed me to work there for about 11 months. And I had a wonderful time. So going from kind of freelancing and then back to a job, there were a few little niggles, but it was also really nice. I felt like I was a little bit ready at that point to actually have some human interaction, because when you're traveling around, you know, you're just kind of here, there, and everywhere. And I'll just apologise for those who are at TOC about the fact that I'm in front of lupins in this photo, but it was mainly so that I could just remember that, you know, that time with my sister, because they are highly invasive species, so they're beautiful, but yeah, let's just ignore that one. Okay, and then enters my van life chapter. So you can't come to New Zealand without wanting to get a van. So it's really a thing, and that was definitely one of the things that I was really, really keen on doing when I first came. And so after my work ended, I ended up hiking a lot. And so I've grown up on the Isle of Wight, very much outdoors, or tramping, as I would call it now. And yeah, really, really got into it. And that kind of became like a hobby that then allowed me to kind of go to different places as well. So I was working on the road as well. And this was for like UK clients and things as well. So there's my little setup. I really just got a really crappy table from Bunnings or something. And it wasn't necessarily ideal, but it's the space that I had. And it became quite sweet. Like I wasn't able to move out of that space. I had to physically get everything off. And then I had to go and fold the table. You know, it was quite janky. But we made it work, and I still got some work done, which is great. And then this picture, purely because this was on the Milford Road, and this is actually quite embarrassing to admit, but I did cry on that road because it was so beautiful, and it was also one of those places that it was kind of one of the reasons I actually wanted to come here. It was what really sold it to me. So actually being there was quite an emotional experience, to be honest. And for those of you who also travel, like, you'll kind of understand that feeling of just feeling really, really overwhelmed by something, especially when it comes to nature. And then again, another embarrassing thing to admit, I think there are a lot of embarrassing pictures in here actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But this was actually, so I was hiking a lot on my own. This was during COVID times. And this is taken with a timer. So I was basically all on my own on these mountain peaks, and it was beautiful. Had a lot of sunrises and all these wonderful things. But yes, that was a self-timer. And then the other chapter. So I then came back to Wellington and ended up spending about 3 years here. So luckily there was my visa rules actually changed. And so rather than me being able to only work for 11 months, it then became that I could work indefinitely as long as my visa allowed me to. And so I came back, and luckily there was a job going back at dock. And so I came back to my lovely team and worked there for another sort of 3 years. In that time, I also kind of scratched that itch of wanting to be a wanderlust, and so I went back to Europe, saw my parents, and I guess given COVID, I hadn't been home for about 3 years, and given the fact that this was my first time away ever from the UK, it was pretty tough, you know, difficult to kind of adjust to living on the other side of the world when you physically cannot actually go home. So that was definitely a time of my life which was a little bit strange. And then in 2023, I ended up getting my residency. And that was kind of for me like a real symbol of achievement, because I really, really found like it was home here, and I really, really enjoyed being here. I enjoyed baking. This is one of the things that I was doing actually a lot of in this time, in these kind of 3 years, and something I really, really missed when I was in my van, you know, like having a hot shower and baking and all that fun stuff. You can't really do it when you've got a van, so it's kind of one side or the other. But yeah, I definitely found this was kind of my more rooted chapter. And then I left again. So I didn't leave in this plane. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually a really weird, yeah. So this is an experience you can do at Wellington Airport, which is great. But anyway, yes, I didn't fly myself out of the country, but this is just, could you imagine? That'd be awful. But then I left. And then, so I knew I needed to go somewhere, and I ended up going to the US first to go and see my sister, and I spent a lot of time in art galleries. So I realized I'd not spent time in art galleries for a long time, and so me wanting to be an artist as little Rach, I really wanted to be a fine artist and a realism artist. That's the kind of thing that really, really got me going. And so I was oogling at all of these beautiful artists in DC, and this is a piece by Jan van Huysum, who is a Dutch painter, and he's kind of known as the realism floral kind of king. And the thing for me that I really noticed was his age when he painted this, and it made me think, so he was in his late 40s, like kind of early 50s, when most of his masterpieces came out, and I was here thinking at my ripe little age of 30, like, I'm just going to have to do graphic design for the rest of my life. Like I want to do art, but I just don't know what to do. And so this was like actually a really, really lovely moment of me kind of realizing I've still got so much time to create my masterpiece, and it can be in 50 years time, it can be whenever. And so from that, I ended up actually hiring a somatics business coach, just to kind of help me unearth those things in me that have kind of made me, or that had made me not pursue art in the way that I felt like I really wanted to within my soul. And so she helped me kind of like set up this account. I just used an old one and everything, but really, really inspired me to actually just go for it and start creating. And since creating this, I think there have been a lot of friends who have, one, really loved that I've kind of just gone for it, and two, have felt inspired themselves. And I think this is one of the things that I really love doing, is just kind of saying to people, you can literally do anything you want. You just got to take that little first step. And so when I was back in New Zealand, back here, I also had the opportunity to go and teach in China. And this was something that absolutely terrified me. I hadn't taught before. I didn't know how I was going to carry myself teaching a bachelor's degree in design. And whilst I knew my stuff, it was a little bit tough, but I absolutely loved it. And I didn't know if I was going to go and kind of go again. So I ended up also doing a little bit of a trip and traveling around China. And then that's just me relaxing in the Philippines, where I kind of like spent most of my time after that. And then I came back, and I since have been to China once, and I'm about to go again. And the biggest thing about this kind of chapter is that I'm really getting back into my hobbies again. So for a while I was wondering whether I was going to be a graphic designer all my life, and I might well be. I'm finding more joy and more passion in it because I'm actually investing in my other hobbies. So that's something that I found was really, really important for me. So I've just told you actually a really annoying account of what my life's been, and I've missed out all the bad parts. So it's actually quite annoying. So I'm going to go and fill this in, and I'm going to tell you the actual realities of some of these things. So, very much happened. I was very much wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and was loving life, sitting in a hammock and all that wonderful stuff. But there were a lot of times that were quite difficult for me. So when I actually started out, I thought I was going to, this is when I quit my job in Bristol, I thought I was going to take 4 months to be able to go abroad. And I took 14 months. There was a lot more planning than I had anticipated. Moving to the other side of the world is a lot more work than just kind of packing a bag the night before. And I really wanted to make sure that I would be able to settle or at least have the option to, right? And so what I ended up doing is looking at lots of blogs, because blogs are actually like a really big thing at that point. The digital nomad scene is obviously like much better now, but back then, there were a lot of blogs that I was kind of looking at. And so when I came home, I had this really big freak out with my best friend. And I said, what have I done? I've just quit a job that was actually pretty great. I know I was in a place that I really loved. And then for some reason, and I still to this day have no idea why it was there, but there was basically a, what they called fortune cookie, fortunes, that just said you will settle abroad in the next year for no reason whatsoever. And so that to me was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I just don't know how long it's going to take me. And then when I was traveling around and after I had left, there were times where I actually had to let clients down simply because Wi-Fi issues were happening and I wasn't prepared for that, right? I'd been freelancing at home on my desk and everything was there. It's definitely very different when you get out there, and also power cuts are a real thing too. So you just gotta you gotta have a look. So I was because I was in what was it 2019 that I went. I again was looking at blogs. Nowadays you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, all the other kind of social channels that will really help you find places. For me it was definitely a little bit harder, but nowadays I think it's like a much better time to kind of enter that space. So yeah, freelancing means many hats. I wasn't prepared for this necessarily, but I just kind of threw myself in, like you're your own accountant, your IT support, absolutely everything. And you've got to kind of set money aside if you want a pension. So nowadays I kind of like invest, and there are lots of other options that you can do like that really help. But just be prepared to be absolutely everything. And it's a great thing, but it's also a lot more work. Build systems early. So I have, and I actually still religiously use Google Sheets, because I guess it's like available online, which might not be too great if I'm traveling around too much. But all of these things can save you a lot of time. So creating a template for your invoices and all that kind of stuff, just having something that's set aside, and making sure that you kind of draft out a contract as well. So I actually used the Graphic Designers Guild when I first started freelancing, and it's actually an American version, but they do have kind of websites and things that put it into various different countries, I guess. Internet is gold, as we've just said. Just make sure that you're really searching where everything is. As I said, it's a little bit easier kind of nowadays to kind of find those spaces and those cafes. And also libraries are a really good way to get internet and seats. And then your gear matters. So I ended up traveling with a laptop, like a 15-inch MacBook, and a iPad that's like about the size of an A4 piece of paper, and that was fine for me, right? I was able to use that as a second screen. Nowadays you've got kind of screens that fold in and all that fun stuff as well, so your gear definitely matters when you're on the road. And then balance wanderlust and work, meet those deadlines, and make hay while the sun shines. So there were times where I would get a little bit distracted and be, you know, off with new people and new friends and all that kind of stuff, and it's really tempting to do that. Please don't. You know, just keep your head on a little bit, because you never know what's going to come, and sometimes it's that there's a power cut and you then can't kind of finish off the piece of work that you thought you were going to. And then this chapter here, so yeah, very much came, my sister came and got a lovely job, but I ended up escaping to Hawaii when I got here. So she was going to come a month later, so I always knew that she was going to be here, but what I wasn't prepared for is the fact that I'd been traveling for the last 2-3 months in Asia. I'd spent barely any money, and then I came to New Zealand and I realized that everything is really expensive. So I realized I would have spent a lot more money than if I were to go fly to my sister, who luckily was in Hawaii. There was a lot of kind of guilt and shame associated with this kind of feeling, almost as though I'd failed and though I wasn't ready. So I really had to kind of like take myself through that. But luckily she had a dog, and so puppy cuddles were definitely something I was excited for. And then I guess the other kind of elephant in the room, so I was freelancing for about 18 months or so at this point, and then we go into COVID. So I get the job and we go into COVID, and I was really, really craving some social time at this point. And then I got kind of self-isolated indefinitely, you know? So there are lots of curveballs that are gonna kind of come your way. And that's why I think you just kind of got to remain as strong as you possibly can, and seek help from people, you know? Just because I was on the other side of the world doesn't mean that my friends weren't there. And especially when you're on the road and, you know, trying to work and do all that kind of stuff as well, it's especially important that you're kind of sticking to your people. So budget realistically, living costs may surprise you. As I said, I wasn't prepared for going from Asia to here. Paperwork first. So make sure that your taxes, visas, and local registrations are sorted. So the reason why I put this is because I actually came here and I realized that I didn't have a bank account set up. I didn't have my IRD number. So there's a lot to say about kind of figuring out what you need to be doing when you actually enter a country as well. Not just the visas to get you in, but what you need to be doing if you're going to be staying for a period of time. And then explore with enthusiasm, but don't forget the plan. So yeah, had I kept my head on a little bit more and thought about all of this, which I did have all of my notes in my notes app and all that stuff, I think it would have been a little bit of an easier ride for me. And then, maybe this is for my own benefit, but emergency exits are okay. Book that backup flight if it eases your anxiety, and dog cuddles often help. So that's just, obviously, just good advice. So this chapter, van life chapter, big elephant in the room. So this is me freaking out because basically I was due to get a work visa and then it didn't happen. So I thought I was going to be working at Dock for a lot longer, and then sadly it didn't get processed, and so I was living in a van. So I actually bought this van whilst I was waiting for this visa to process, and then when the visa didn't go through, I realised that this is my home, and so I hadn't really prepared, and so I'd gotten a van that didn't have heating, and it was really tiny, and I'm a small person, right? But it was definitely quite difficult, and I was kind of flung in. So on Instagram, it was absolutely, wow, you're living the dream when you've bought a van and everything. In reality, I was freaking out. That was me, like a lot of the time. All of this was like very, very unexpected, and you just have to kind of go for it. So again, I still stick by the fact that having hobbies and things is something that really, really grounded me in that time, because everything else felt super, super unstable. And then, because of the reality of having this van that I wasn't prepared for living in, it was really cold actually, and so this looks like a beautiful sunny day, and actually it probably wasn't the right picture to choose, but I don't actually have many pictures of me working, funnily enough, in my van. But yeah, there's always going to be times, kind of going back to my point before, where you have to kind of make hay while the sun shines and just try and get as much work done as you can in the times that you can. So embrace the unexpected. Some things are out of your control, but flexibility is key. And it's okay to not love every aspect of it. You know, that's kind of the balance of life. And if it were a case that every single thing in this journey went right, like, gosh, does that happen for anyone? You know, right? Van life essentials. If you are thinking about getting a van and actually traveling in it, make sure that your van has power. So I actually had to put power into my van in order to make it road worthy, or freelance worthy, I guess. And just think about the kind of heaters and things that you would get in there. Again, I didn't have a heater, but I would highly suggest you get one, especially if it's going into winter. And then visas and taxes. It's boring. No one likes to hear about it, but it's essential when you're moving around. So just make sure that you're aware of your rights and allowances. So I say this because I was on a working holiday visa in New Zealand, but I was able to work for my clients in the UK. So I wasn't able to work for anyone in New Zealand, but I was there. And so it's just about kind of choosing and making sure that you're calling up immigration and whoever you need to call, and looking at blogs and, you know, accounts and all that kind of fun stuff as well, just to make sure that you're actually being legal with what you're doing. And then the rooted chapter. So as I kind of touched on a little bit before, the difficult thing that I found was that I wasn't actually investing in other hobbies of mine. And so I feel like that kind of led me to a burnout that wasn't something that I had expected. You know, I really loved my job, I loved the people, but there was something in me that wasn't feeling creative, even though I was physically doing creative work every day. And so it led me into a little bit of an imposter syndrome hole. And sometimes that still comes back, you know, I'm kind with that little imposter that's inside me sometimes. But it was definitely a little bit of a difficult kind of mental time. I ended up having, I think it was just a difficult time for me, and I don't want to, you know, as I've done with this kind of Instagram versus reality thing, I don't want to make it seem like it was this beautiful, wonderful time. So here are some tips. So keep your dreams alive. Even if plans pause, find small ways to keep pursuing your passions. So whether or not I was kind of engaging in like more artistic things or not, there were always things that I could have been doing, right? And I just think I got a little bit in my head about that. And then balance stability and freedom. So being rooted for a while doesn't mean losing your nomadic spirit. It can fuel it. So use that stability to grow. I think this is what I would have done. I mean, I love my life, you know. There's nothing, like, I wouldn't change it per se, but this is just a piece of advice that I think might have helped me a little bit. And then invest in your work. Committing to a job that you love always allows you to grow and save and plan for your next adventure. So one of the obviously really good things about me being settled for so long there was that I was able to then leave and go on my next adventure. So someone with a nomadic spirit, like, I'm constantly finding other new places to go. And then this chapter here, so a lot more happened in here, so I will talk to you about that now. So sadly, when I was leaving New Zealand, I wanted to travel, like, you know, 10, 15, 20 countries. I wanted to build a tiny house in the Philippines. Like, I wanted to do it all, essentially. And then sadly, just before I came back to the UK, my dad had a pretty serious stroke. So what I ended up doing, because cognitively he wasn't really in the place to do it, and physically he wasn't either, I ended up spending 7 months in the Philippines kind of getting that paperwork together and stuff for him. So no, it wasn't the trip that I had planned, but oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did it. You know, like, they're actually there now. Shout out to you, parents. But yeah, it was definitely a tough time of my life. But again, on my Instagram, and my Instagram feed, I'm totally guilty of it. It looks like I've just had, like, the best time, right? And everyone's like, wow, you're just traveling everywhere and doing all these things. I'm like, yeah, you know, and you guys now know. But yeah, it was definitely like a hard time, definitely a hard time in my life. But I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm really glad that I was able to kind of help him out there, because it was a huge life goal of his, and now he's achieved it, which is amazing. And the other thing is obviously now I didn't have any space for all my stuff again, so I had to sell quite literally, or at least like pass some things on to my wonderful friends. Thank you. So I had to sell a lot of my things. So it was kind of difficult. I was really enjoying being rooted here, but I just had something that was telling me to go. And again, I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that I wasn't balancing these kind of creative things, because I think actually what you were saying, Claire, there was something in your speech that kind of, stability doesn't have to be in a physical place, it can be within yourself, and I think that's exactly what I'm trying to cultivate at the moment. So yeah, it was a perfect thing for you to say. So pack mentally as well as physically. Emotional prep matters as much as your backpack when your life throws curveballs. Coaching, mentorship, our guidance can help uncover blocks and accelerate growth. So I did invest in a somatics coach, and she ended up being my business coach as well. And that was really important for me. I realized I was going to be kind of here, there and everywhere, and I didn't quite know what my plans were. So that was another factor as well. And so I made the decision to make sure I had some kind of stability in the form of someone that I could talk to. And there are lots of different types, whether that's therapy, whether that's, kind of CBT, EMDR. There are so many different types, and you'll be able to kind of figure out what is best for you. But for me, I really needed that stability because I wasn't physically stable, if that makes sense. Like, as in geographically, rather, not physically. Change isn't failure. So shifting course can reveal possibilities that you didn't even know existed. Again, I definitely could have gone down the route of feeling guilty or shameful or anything about the fact that this plan wasn't working out in the way I had, quote unquote, expected. But it allowed me to actually really, really unearth a lot of the artistic things in myself, because it allowed me to really slow down, right? If I was kind of traveling around here, there and everywhere, I would have been crazy distracted. I would have wanted to do everything and see everyone, and I think I wouldn't have given as much time to myself to be able to actually kind of cultivate some real safety within myself. And say yes to the things that scare you. So fear and excitement are chemically the same in the body, and I love this fact. It's actually your brain that kind of determines what you're feeling, but chemically in your body it's exactly the same. And so the reason why I put this is because of what I was saying about teaching in China, right? I was nervous about doing this, and I'd not done it before, and I just decided to say yes and go for it and try it out. And I'm so glad that I did, because I feel like, again, it was another push for me to be able to just kind of get some confidence back, and get some creativity in a completely different sense back. And I was also teaching graphic design, so I felt like it was, kind of with what I was doing anyway. And here, so there's not too much that I want to talk about here in terms of the negative, because I feel like I'm in a pretty good place, and also to leave it on a bit more of a high. But the only thing that I would say is rejection. You're going to get rejected for different jobs, and so I feel like I'm kind of what's the word, like exercising my rejection muscle. I don't know if that's not the way to put it, but it will happen, and there have been times where I've come back, because I came back this year and I thought, no, I want to work in a full-time permanent role, and then I think I want to still go to China and do these things, So I think it's take the best opportunity that's available to you at the time, and kind of you'll figure it out kind of along the way. There isn't a right or wrong answer. There are society's norms of what you should and should be doing, but just follow what you want to do, and keep your head on with it as well, obviously. So again, rejection is redirection. It's often a signal to shift. It's often a signal to shift towards something that aligns more closely. So this is one of the things that I was really telling myself. Like, if it's not meant for me, it won't be for me, okay? And that can be really tough. By no means am I saying that this is easy. Rejection is always going to feel like pretty visceral. But the more that it happens, that's why they call it rejection therapy, right? The more that it happens, the kind of like easier it does feel for you. And then it allows you to really kind of understand what it is that you want to pursue. And so your emergency fund, again, boring, money. But especially when you're starting again, which I was, and I have done multiple times, make sure that you're accounting for at least the next 5 months including beer money. So the reason why I put this is they generally say as a rule of thumb, it's kind of 3 to 6 months. My personal experience and just mentally for me, it helps to kind of be more on that 6-month side, just so that you're not kind of scrounging and scrambling. And also include your beer money in that. You want to have fun as well, right? It doesn't have to be beer if you're sober, obviously. Snack money. And then success is different for everyone, so please don't hold yourself to society's ideals of where you should be in life, you know? Like, especially when, I don't know, you're in your 30s, and a lot of people can probably relate to this, or, you know, you kind of get to a milestone in your life, like you feel like you should be somewhere. And I think it's just about kind of accepting where you are and just like learning to love that kind of process and journey. So, with all of that said, that's kind of my life story. What I wanted to talk a little bit today about is mantras and things that will really help you out. So I've been kind of on an art journey recently of rediscovering the artist in me versus the designer. And obviously they work hand in hand, but that's the kind of journey that I'm on. And so what I want to do with you today is just ask you a question. So if you could choose one thing that you do just for yourself creatively in the next 30 days or so until the next Creative Mornings, what would that be? So I want you to just have a little conversation with your neighbour. If you don't want to share it, that's absolutely fine. You might just want to write something down. But I just want you to think about something that you've been meaning to do and you've been putting off for however many reasons that you've had, right? And just think of one little step that you can take towards that thing. And again, it doesn't have to be in that next 30 days, but just have it in your mind and just have a little chat to someone around you about it.
Yeah, it's like a recovering artist.
Not just creative, like life events. Oh, yeah. Spiritually life. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
You having fun? You having fun?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I hope so. We'll find out. I'm a bit nervous. The focus is really... Anyway, you're doing great.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for giving me this chance to take photos of people's faces as well. I've been trying to creep around the edge of the walls to try and get people.
Oh, yeah. Nah, stay here, man. Do your thing. Yeah, go on. Get it.
It's a busy task, and I don't know if you're brain task that you don't pack up after an hour. I see a task where you set up like some tasks to do it like I just
Oh my god, it has.
and it's even better if it's like yeah, like the designated room is like
Okay, guys. So if you've not already, I want you to offer one encouraging step that this person can take towards their goal. So once they've kind of shared that, think about one thing that they can do and just have that discussion a little bit as well. I'll give you a few minutes.
I'll think about it.
I would say just take it literally one step at a time, and then just kind of try and keep moving forward until you get stuck, and then reach out for help.
I'm sweating.
What? Sorry?
I'm sweating.
You're fine.
I am.
You don't look like you're sweating.
For me, the first step has been surrounding myself with like-minded people, and then the kind of things that keep going and keep reach out to other people.
Amazing. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Oh, that's actually timed okay. But now, in a minute's time, it's the... Huh? Put another, like, 1.5 minutes or so. I love this little click button. It's really good. It's fun though. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, much easier than kind of going.
Then I can use it for work as well.
Perfect, yeah, great. I wasn't standing here, I was standing more over here, wasn't I? I drifted. It's also kind of hard because that light is like... Yeah. 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 Okay, guys. So has everyone kind of shared? That's the way to do it. There we go. Okay, so everyone should have something in their head a little bit about one of their next goals for their, or one of the next steps for their goals, rather. So, you do have some paper on your chair. I would encourage you to write this down, right? Write down what your goal is, or just write down what your next step is. Because sometimes if you write down like your whole goal, it can feel a little bit daunting. So think about that next tiny step. Either write it down now or write it down later, get inspired, and hopefully it will help you to just kind of work towards that. And so a little bit of science as to why seeing it actually works. So your brain's filter, i.e. the reticular activating system, loves patterns. And so the more that you see your goal physically, the more that your brain makes it natural for you. And it gives you a little bit more of a chance to work towards it. So this is kind of like a neuroscience term and something that I've really enjoyed learning about recently. So I just wanted to share that. And so each glance strengthens the neural pathways, making the goal feel more possible and less out there. And so that's why kind of like setting up little tiny steps really, really helps. Like personally for me, I have like a big kind of list of, where's it from? Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I always tick things off my list, right? It's also a little dopamine hit for you as well. And then repetition rewires. So repetition plus neuroplasticity replaces doubt with familiarity, and your brain starts treating the goal as normal and not as if this big thing that's really, really daunting. And so tiny sparks equals eventual fire. So every reminder sparks small neural shifts, and over time, neuroplasticity rewires your brain to act on the goal more naturally. So I actually have some of my goals and some of my kind of mantras posted on my mirror because I look in that mirror every single day, right? And it just makes it a little bit more normal for me to be looking at the things that I want to do and want to achieve. And what a difference a day makes. So this is something that I tell myself when I'm having a bad day. And when I am waiting on something or something's not quite going right, I will just tell myself, what a difference a day makes. This could all be completely different tomorrow. And so all these kind of like little mantras and sayings and things have really, really helped me over the last sort of particularly year or so. So think about a moment. You don't have to talk about this one because it can be a little bit more personal. But think about a moment where you felt uncertain, stuck, or like things weren't moving forward. And just imagine your future self, maybe 1 year from now, giving you advice in that moment. So you can think about this one. Write down your future self message and keep it short. And this can be your mantra. And that's it. Woo! Woo!
Oh yeah, I can wrap up. Has anyone got any questions for Rachel? No question? Oh yeah, Penny? Oh.
I wish I could say yes. Sometimes I do. I just find it. Oh, sorry, I do have a mic. Yeah,
Okay,
but thank you. I am still guilty of just kind of really sharing the Instagram side. And my close friends, I will share the reality. And I'm quite, I would say, like a vulnerable person. And so I think that's kind of where I get it from. But to be honest, recently, in the last, say, year or so, I've just not been posting as much, you know? Like, it's just, I don't really want to share. It didn't feel right for me to be sharing all these wonderful, happy things all the time when that's not necessarily how the journey goes. I'm also not trying to be like a positivity influencer or anything. So yeah, I think it's about, for me, it's like cultivating people within my life who I'm comfortable and safe feeling like talking to, and sharing that with them and letting them know, yeah.
When you were first getting into the freelance industry, did you find it quite hard to get clients and stuff, or did you find it quite hard to like keep a stable sort of income going from that?
Yeah, so I did. It was I was quite lucky because I'd met the refill team beforehand, and that's kind of what really allowed me, I guess, to take the leap and go. The one thing I would say is like word of mouth and community is a really huge thing. I know it sounds like a big cliche, but you know, even going to events like this and meeting other people, you never know what opportunity is going to come around. So with that first client, and that was actually the only client that I had, I just took a humongous leap. They ended up having different clients that I was able to work with too from word of mouth. So I think it's really about putting yourself out there, and I don't know if that's necessarily that helpful, but it was a little bit of a tough ride, and I didn't know when my money was going to come in. So again, that's kind of why that emergency fund and things really helps. But yeah, does that help? Yeah. Cool.
So you had the emergency fund, that's fine, but how do you talk yourself through that fear of doing your next step, or like what do you say to stop yourself from stopping your dreams? Like, you think of this next thing.
Yeah, good question. I think for me, knowing that fear and anxiety, or fear and excitement, are the same thing, that is a huge thing for me, right? And it's still a calculated decision. You know, I'm not just kind of gonna, if I didn't have my emergency fund, or I didn't have like a kind of rough plan, like I probably couldn't do it, right? Just to ease my own anxiety more than anything. So I think there becomes a point where I just tell myself that actually I'm excited and I'm not that fearful of it, and that has actually really helped me. But just as long as I've kind of got a few things that have kind of kept me grounded, then yeah, that's how I deal with it. Thanks. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Any more questions? Oh, hi.
Hi. Just quickly, you mentioned you're going to China.
Yes.
Like, what stage are you in now? Are you still working?
So I am contracting at the moment, just for a couple months, and I will head back out to China in November, and I think I'll just keep going out there every few months, really.
Yeah, so you'll come back after that?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like I've kind of like made a little bit of a base here, but that's not to say I still keep going and then living somewhere else and then coming back. But yeah, I'll kind of figure all that stuff with my flat and all that fun stuff too. But yeah, it's in a way I feel like I've got lots of homes, and so yeah, my parents have just moved out to the Philippines now, so I'll get to go and see that and things. But yeah, kind of travel here, there, and everywhere, really. Yeah.
Cool. I think we'll wrap it up there then. I'm sure Rachel won't mind you grabbing if you've got any more questions. And we will see you at next month's Creative Mornings, hopefully. I can't remember the date or the theme.
The theme is Blossom.
Blossom, there we go.
We have no dates yet because we have no speaker.
Oh, okay. Well,
just for the record, we had a speaker. We had it all organised, and then that didn't quite work out. So we're on the hunt at the moment for another speaker.
So take the hint if
So
anyone's
take
got
the
any
hint.
ideas.
Or if you have any ideas for someone that could speak to the theme of Blossom, whether that is very ambiguous or not, like whether that's they're a florist, or whether that is they're talking about blossoming into a new stage of their life, let me know. I do have some ideas of which I'd like to speak to you about.
Okay, well watch this space then, guys, and we'll hope to see you next time. Thanks for coming along. And thank you, Rachel, again.
Thank you guys for having me.
Sharing your story.